The research vessel Gentle Current tumbled through the endless darkness of space like a dying whale. Its beautiful crystalline hull, once gleaming like a precious gem, now showed ugly cracks that spread like spider webs across its surface. Inside the ship, Captain Veltar pressed his soft tentacles against the control console, feeling the vibrations of his dying vessel through his sensitive skin. The bridge lights flickered from blue to red, then back to blue again. Each flicker meant another system failing. Veltar's large eyes, designed to see in the deep oceans of his homeworld, watched the holographic displays with growing despair. The numbers kept dropping: oxygen levels, power reserves, structural integrity. Everything was going wrong at once. "Captain," whispered Science Officer Cathana, her voice like singing water even in this moment of terror. Her translucent body glowed with nervous patterns of light that rippled under her skin. "The quantum containment field is collapsing. If we don't stabilize it soon, how long?" Veltar asked, though he already knew the answer would be terrible. 6 rotations. Maybe 7 if we shut down non-essential systems. She paused, her bioluminescent patches dimming with fear. "But the atmosphere processors are tied to the main grid. If we lose power, Veltar closed his eyes. 6 rotations meant roughly 18 Earth hours, though he didn't know that. In less than a day, 200 of the galaxy's brightest minds would suffocate in the cold vacuum of space. Marine biologists, stellar cartographers, quantum physicists, xenorchaeologists, an entire generation of Zephyrian science would die with them. The ship groaned around them, metal and crystal singing a death song as gravitational stresses pulled at the failing structure. Through the transparent walls, Veltar could see the stars wheeling slowly as the ship tumbled out of control. Beautiful, distant, uncaring stars that would witness their deaths without sorrow. "Sir," came another voice from the communications station. Young Piptal, barely out of the academy, his tentacles shaking as he worked his controls. "I'm reading massive power surges in the emergency beacon array. The cascade failure is affecting everything. Can we send a distress signal?" "Yes, but..." Piptal's color patterns shifted to show deep concern. "Sir, the nearest Zephyrian vessels are 14 rotations away. Even if they received our signal and left immediately, they would arrive to find only corpses." Veltar understood. The cold mathematics of space travel didn't care about hope or prayers. Distance was distance, and time was time, and both were working against them. "There are other options," Cathana said quietly. "The emergency beacon can reach much further than our normal communications. The automated systems will contact any vessel capable of hyperspace travel within a 50 parsec radius." The bridge fell silent, except for the ominous creaking of the dying ship. Every crew member knew what that meant. Galactic Council Law 847 was clear. No unauthorized contact with unknown species. The law existed for good reasons. The galaxy was full of dangers: aggressive civilizations, mechanical horrors, things that looked friendly but consumed entire worlds. But 50 parsecs would reach beyond Zephyrian space, beyond the safe known regions where civilized beings traded and talked and shared knowledge. It would reach into the dark spaces where unknown things lived and hunted. "The computer is showing possible responders," Piptal reported, his voice barely above a whisper. "Most signals are coming from the 3rd spiral arm, the restricted zone." Veltar felt his blood chill. The restricted zone, the Deathworlds, places where evolution had gone wrong, creating monsters instead of civilized beings. His people had stories about those regions, worlds where the very air was poison, where creatures fought and killed for entertainment, where the dominant species had clawed their way to the top of their food chains through violence and cunning. From the Deathworlds, he breathed, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. But what choice did they have? Death by suffocation, or death by whatever horrors might answer their call? At least the monsters might be quick about it. "Activate the emergency beacon," Veltar ordered, his voice steady, despite the fear coursing through his body. "All frequencies. Maximum range." Cathana's tentacles hesitated over the controls. "Sir? Are you certain?" Once we send this signal, we cannot take it back. Whatever comes, comes. 200 lives, Katana. 200 of our people, Eltar. Looked around the bridge at his crew, young beings full of dreams and discoveries they would never make. If there's even a chance. She pressed the activation sequence. Deep in the ship's core, ancient transmitters awakened and began screaming their plea for help across the void. The signal raced outward at the speed of light, carrying with it the coordinates of their position and the desperate hope of a dying crew. 3 billion kilometers away, in a sterile room filled with humming computers and blinking lights, Lieutenant Commander Park Hyun-woo was having the worst night shift of his career. The coffee was terrible, the heater was broken, and the quantum listening arrays kept picking up static from a nearby pulsar. Hyun-woo rubbed his tired eyes and checked his watch. Still for hours, until his replacement arrived. Deep space communications for 3 years? And the most exciting thing he'd ever detected was a garbled transmission from a mining colony, reporting a broken water recycler. Then every alarm in the room went off at once. What the hell? Huey bolted upright, coffee spilling across his uniform, as holographic displays exploded to life around him. The quantum arrays were going crazy, picking up a signal unlike anything in their databases. Alien symbols cascaded down his screens like digital rain, and the universal translation matrix was struggling to make sense of it. But even through the interference and translation errors, the message was clear. Asterisk Mayday. Life support failing. Coordinates attached. Please help. Hyun-woo's hands flew over the controls, his training taking over as adrenaline flooded his system. First priority, verify the signal's authenticity. The computers ran analysis after analysis, checking for deception. Patterns, hidden code, signs of trap or ambush. But everything pointed to the same conclusion. This was a genuine distress call from a ship full of dying aliens. He hit the emergency alert button and spoke into his communicator. Command. This is Deep Space Station Prometheus. We have a Code 7 situation. Unknown alien vessel in distress, coordinates attached, requesting immediate command authorization. The response came back in less than 30 seconds. Stand by, Prometheus. Admiral Kim is en route to your station. Admiral Kim Tajan arrived. At the command center, like a force of nature, his weathered face grim and his eyes sharp with decades of military experience. Behind him came his senior staff, Captain Lee So-young from Intelligence, Commander Yoon Min-ho from Tactical, and a handful of other officers who'd been dragged from their beds by the emergency alert. Show me what we have, Tajan ordered. Studying the alien transmission with professional calm, So-young pulled up the analysis reports. Sir, signal originates from approximately 3 billion kilometers, bearing 27 markets. The transmission uses quantum entanglement protocols. We've never seen before, but the distress pattern is unmistakable. Computer estimates roughly 200 life forms aboard the vessel. Species identification? Unknown. But the biosignature readings suggest carbon-based, possibly aquatic in origin. Nothing in our threat databases. Commander Minho stepped forward, his tactical mind already calculating possibilities. Sir, it could be a trap. Unknown species, uncharted space. Perfect bait for an ambush. Tajan nodded slowly. He'd survived 40 years in the Terran Defense Fleet by being paranoid, careful, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. But he'd also survived by knowing when to take risks for the right reasons. Analysis of the ship's condition, he asked. Critical So-young replied. Their power systems are failing, life support is compromised, and their hull integrity is dropping fast. If this is genuine, they have maybe 18 hours before total system failure. And if it's a trap, then whoever said it is either very desperate or very stupid, Minho admitted. The energy signature alone suggests they're barely keeping their ship together. If they wanted to ambush us, they picked a terrible way to do it. Tajan studied the alien symbols scrolling across the main display. 200 beings dying in the cold of space, sending out a desperate plea for help to anyone who might listen. It could be a trap, but it could also be exactly what it appeared to be. People in trouble, reaching out to strangers in the hope that someone, somewhere might care enough to help. Signal the fleet, he ordered, his voice carrying the authority. of absolute command. Launch the Indomitable, Defiant, and Thunderstrike. Full battle configuration. All crew complement, Marines included. Sir So-young said carefully, "Are we responding as a rescue mission or a military operation?" Tajin's smile was cold and sharp. "Both. If someone's in trouble, we help them. If someone's trying to hurt us, we end them. That's what we do." The orders went out across the fleet channels, and within minutes, 3 of humanity's most advanced warships were powering up their drives and loading their weapons. In the launch bays, Marines checked their equipment and prepared for anything, from humanitarian aid to full combat operations, as the ships prepared to jump to hyperspace. Admiral Tajin stood on the bridge of the command station and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, alien beings were dying, and Earth's children were coming to help them, armed with the greatest weapons humanity had ever built and driven. By the simple belief that no one should die alone in the dark, the rescue fleet disappeared into hyperspace, racing toward an appointment with destiny that would change the galaxy forever. The fabric of space itself seemed to tear apart as 3 massive shapes burst out of hyperspace like angry metal gods. The human warships appeared in perfect triangular formation, their dark holes reflecting the distant starlight like obsidian mirrors. Each vessel was a masterpiece of military engineering, angular, predatory, bristling with weapon arrays that could crack planets and sensor clusters that could spot a coin from 1,000,000 kilometers away. Captain Choi Haijin stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable like a warrior queen surveying a battlefield. Her dark eyes moved quickly across the tactical displays, taking in every detail of the situation in seconds. Round her, the bridge hummed with controlled energy as her crew worked at their stations with the precision of a symphony orchestra. Contact. Bearing 27 Mark IV, Lieutenant Kang Dae-yoon called out from her sensor station, her fingers dancing across holographic controls that painted the space around them in 3-dimensional light. Massive vessel, unknown configuration. I'm reading multiple hull breaches, minimal power signature. Dying out there, Captain. The main view screen shifted to show the alien ship, and several crew members gasped. The gentle current was beautiful even in its death throes, a crystalline vessel that looked more like a work of art than a spaceship. Its transparent hull glowed with fading bioluminescent patterns, like a jellyfish slowly losing its light in the depths of an ocean. "Ma'am, I'm reading approximately 200 life signs," Ensign Nam Hoseok reported, his young voice tight. "With concern? Definitely non-human, but the biosignatures are consistent with distress. Heart rates elevated, breathing patterns irregular. You're scared and running out of time." Haijan felt the familiar weight of command settle on her shoulders. 200 lives hung in the balance, and every second of delay could mean death. For someone's family, someone's dreams, someone's future. "Open a channel," she ordered her communications officer. "All frequencies. Let's see if we can talk to them." The response came immediately, but it wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of harsh alien growls or electronic buzzing, the voice that filled the bridge was hauntingly beautiful. Musical tones that seemed to flow like water over stones. The universal translator worked frantically to convert the alien speech into something humans could understand. Double quotes, please. "We meant no harm. We are researchers. Our ship is dying." The voice carried such genuine fear and desperation that several bridge officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. This wasn't what they'd been trained to expect from first contact with an unknown species. "This is Captain Choi Ha-jin of the Terran Defense Fleet," she replied, her voice calm and professional. "We received your distress call. Prepare to be boarded for emergency assistance." There was a long pause, and when the alien voice returned, it was filled with a terror that made Haijin's blood run cold. "Terran, you are? From the Death World?" Haijin exchanged glances with her first officer, Commander Shin Woojin. The tall, serious man raised an eyebrow in confusion. "Death World? What did that mean?" "A known vessel. We are here to render aid," Haijin said carefully. "Will you accept assistance?" Another pause, longer this time. "Then, we... Yes. But please, we surrender. We offer no resistance. We know what your kind does to enemies. What my kind does." Hajin frowned, genuinely puzzled. "We help people in distress." She turned to Wu Jin. "Emergency response. Teams, full hazmat protocols, until we know their atmospheric requirements. And Shin, make sure the medics are ready for anything." "Aye," Captain Wu Jin replied, already working his communicator. Throughout the ship, emergency teams sprang into action with the efficiency that had made the Terran Defense Fleet famous across human space. Meanwhile, aboard the dying Gentle Current, Captain Veltar pressed himself against his command chair. As his ship's sensors detected impossible energy readings from the human vessels, the alien warships weren't just armed, they were weapons platforms that could probably destroy his entire homeworld without breaking a sweat. "Captain," whispered Science Officer Kithana, her bioluminescent patches flickering with patterns of pure terror. "Their weapons' signatures. I've never seen anything like this. Each of their ships carries more firepower than our entire planetary defense grid." "And they're coming aboard," Veltar replied, watching in fascination and horror as energy signatures appeared in his cargo bay. "Whatever happens, remember, we are scientists. We seek knowledge, not conflict." The teleportation effect was like watching lightning trapped in a bottle. Bright columns of energy materialized in the cargo bay, and when the light faded, Veltar found himself staring at creatures from his people's worst nightmares. The humans were massive by Zephyrian standards, encased in powered armor that hummed with barely contained energy. Each suit was a masterpiece of military technology: sensor arrays, weapon systems, and protective barriers all integrated into a package that could probably survive a direct hit from a starship's main guns. The weapons they carried were clearly designed for one purpose: killing things very efficiently. "Please," Veltar transmitted through his ship's communication system. His crew huddled behind him like frightened children. "We are scientists. We study stellar formations and cosmic phenomena. We have no weapons, no military value. If you must kill us, please make it quick." The lead figure stepped forward, its armored boots ringing against the deck plating like death. Nels, for a moment, Veltar was certain his life was about to end. Then the creature did something unexpected. It reached up and removed its helmet. The face revealed was undeniably predatory. Forward-facing eyes designed for tracking prey. A strong jaw built for tearing flesh, skin marked with what could only be scars from countless battles. But there was something else in those sharp eyes, something that Veltar's translator couldn't identify but his heart recognized. Kindness. "I'm Sergeant Major O Sunmin, Terran Marine Medical Corps," the human said, his voice crisp and commanding, but somehow reassuring. "Are any of your people injured?" Veltar's translator struggled with the concept. Medical corps? These were healers? Armed healers who traveled in warships and wore armor that could stop antimatter rounds? Several are weak from atmospheric poisoning," Veltar managed to say. "Our elderly cannot survive much longer in these conditions. Our young ones are beginning to show signs of oxygen deprivation." What happened next would be burned into Veltar's memory for the rest of his life. Without hesitation, without asking for payment or guarantees or treaties, the human began issuing orders in rapid-fire bursts. More armored figures materialized in the cargo bay, but these carried different equipment devices that looked like a fusion of medical scanners and military hardware. "Johnson, get the atmospheric analyzers running. Park, I need a full bioscan of their species. Blood chemistry, respiratory requirements, the works. Kim, start setting up the field hospital. I want emergency life support online in 15 minutes." Within moments, the cargo bay had been transformed into something that looked like a cross between a military command post and an advanced medical facility. Humans moved with practiced efficiency, their actions coordinated like a dance they'd performed 1,000 times before. "Your atmospheric mixture is interesting," Zoomin commented as he connected strange devices to the ship's failing life support systems. His tone was conversational, almost casual, as if saving the lives of 200 aliens was just another Tuesday for him. Bit high on the methane side for our taste, but we can synthesize it. Give us 20 minutes. It's 20 minutes to save 200 lives. Beltar had never heard of such efficiency, even from the most advanced Galactic Council. Rescue teams. And these weren't even rescue specialists, they were warriors who happened to know how to heal. I don't understand, Veltar said quietly to Kithana. Our databases said they were monsters, apex predators from a death world. Why are they helping us? Before she could answer, another human approached, this one smaller and less armored, carrying what was obviously a medical scanner. When she spoke, her voice was gentle and reassuring. I'm Dr. Han Myung, she said. I need to examine some of your people to make sure we're providing the right kind of help. Is that okay? Beltar found himself nodding before he could think about it. There was something about these creatures that defied everything he'd been taught about Deathworld species. They were dangerous. Yes, the weapons and armor made that clear. But they were also ... protective, like guardian angels armed with Starship Killer weapons as the humans worked to save his ship and his people. Beltar began to understand that the galaxy's databases might have gotten something very, very wrong about these particular apex predators. They weren't monsters at all. They were heroes who just happened to be very good at killing things that threatened the people they decided to protect. And right now, they decided to protect him. Dr. COG sat in what the crew had dubbed the diplomatic suite. Really. Just a converted storage room with some comfortable chairs and a table that could project holographic displays. The walls still smelled faintly of machine oil and recycled air, but it was the best they could do on short notice. Across from her, Captain Veltar perched nervously on a specially designed chair that accommodated his unique physiology. The Zephyrian. Captain was a fascinating creature to study. His tentacles moved in constant, complex patterns that Jihai's cultural analysis software was working overtime to decode. Right now, the patterns were screaming extreme nervousness in colors that shifted from deep purple to anxious yellow. His large compound eyes darted around the room as if expecting an attack at any moment. Please, Jihai said softly, leaning forward with her hands open and palms up, a gesture she hoped would seem non-threatening. Help me understand something. Why do you seem so afraid of us? We've done nothing but help your people. My medical teams have stabilized your life support. Our engineers are repairing your hull. And our cooks are literally learning to make food that won't poison you. Veltar's bioluminescent patches flickered rapidly, cycling through what she was beginning to recognize as the Zephyrian equivalent of nervous laughter. You are from Terra, Earth. The Death World classification in our databases is ... unprecedented. Death World. Jihai tilted her head, genuinely curious. She'd heard the term before, but only in theoretical discussions about hostile environments. What exactly does that mean? Veltar's tentacles writhed as he accessed his ship's database. Through a neural link, holographic displays materialized between them, showing what looked like a galactic classification system. Earth appeared as a pulsing red dot, marked with symbols that Jihai's translator identified as various forms of danger and avoid at all costs. Your planet, Veltar explained, his voice carrying harmonics that the translator rendered as barely. Controlled panic is listed as Class 12 hazardous, the maximum rating on our scale. The only planet in known space where the dominant species survived by becoming apex predators. Jihai blinked. Apex predators? Us? Have you seen a golden retriever? We literally bred wolves to be cuddly companions. Your gravity, Veltar continued, apparently not hearing her, is 3 times what most spacefaring races consider survivable. Your atmosphere contains oxygen at concentrations that would be toxic to 60% of known species. Whether, he shuddered, his entire body rippling with distress patterns. Hurricanes that could destroy cities, temperature variations that range from molten to frozen, seismic activity that regularly reshapes entire continents. Well, Jihai said with a shrug, it keeps life interesting. We've got some beautiful sunsets too, and the skiing is fantastic after a good earthquake reshapes the mountains. Not that bad? Veltar's entire body pulsed with colors that Jihai was pretty sure indicated he was having some kind of medical episode. Doctor, our preliminary biological analysis of your rescue teams shows beings whose bone density is 4 times the galactic average, whose muscular development suggests they regularly engage in mortal combat for survival, and whose technology is designed primarily for warfare. Jihai laughed, which seemed to terrify Veltar even more. Okay, I can see how that might look scary from the outside, but you have to understand, we're not all warriors. Most of us are just regular people living regular lives. We have families, jobs, hobbies. We watch movies and complain about traffic and argue about what to have for dinner. Your recreational activities? Veltar interrupted. Pulling up more holographic data includes something called martial arts, where you fight each other for entertainment. You have competitions where individuals run for vast distances that would kill most beings, lift weights that would crush our strongest soldiers, and voluntarily jump from flying vehicles with only fabric to slow their descent. Oh, that's just sports, Jihai protested. Skydiving is actually really fun once you get over the initial terror. There's nothing quite like the feeling of free fall. It's like flying, but with more screaming. You do it for fun? Veltars. Color patterns were now cycling through what looked like a medical emergency. You voluntarily experienced terror as entertainment? Well, when you put it like that, ... Hi paused, trying to see her species through alien eyes. Look, maybe we are a little more intense than average, but that doesn't make us monsters. Meanwhile, down in the ship's mess hall, a very different conversation was taking place. Corporal Baymin sat across from a young Zephyrian named Kipra, sharing his field ration with the curiosity of a scientist introducing a new species to human culture. This is beef stew, Minjay explained, holding up a spoonful of the brown, chunky mixture. Well, synthetic beef stew. The real stuff is too expensive for military rations. Kipra watched in fascination as the human casually consumed what her internal analysis identified as enough calories to sustain her for 3 days. Her bioluminescent patches flickered with amazement and a little bit of horror. You eat meat? She observed, her voice carrying the same tone someone might use to say you eat broken glass. Living things that once moved and thought and had families? Well, yeah, Minjay replied, offering her a piece of synthetic protein that looked remarkably like actual beef. We're omnivores. We eat pretty much anything that doesn't eat us first. Though honestly, some humans will eat things that probably should eat us first. Ever heard of ghost peppers? Kipra's patches dimmed with confusion. And you ... enjoy fighting. Our databases suggest your species finds combat pleasurable. Minjay set down his spoon and considered the question seriously. I enjoy protecting people. Sometimes that means fighting, but I'd rather not have to. You know, I'd rather everyone just get along and solve problems by talking. Fighting hurts and people get injured or killed, and that's always terrible. But you carry weapons, Kipra pointed out, gesturing at the sidearm on Minjay's hip and the combat knife strapped to his leg. Many weapons. Why do you need so many tools for killing? Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst, Minjay said. Unconsciously touching the small photo attached to his armor, a picture of his family back on Earth. My grandmother used to say that she survived the sole occupation when she was just a kid. She taught me that we don't look for trouble, but if trouble finds us, he shrugged, we deal with it. Kipra's patches glowed brighter with interest. Your grandmother taught you about warfare? She taught me about taking care of people who matter to you, Minjay corrected gently. Sometimes that means making sure the bad guys can't hurt them. Sometimes it means sharing your last meal with someone who's hungry. Sometimes it means staying up all night with someone who's scared. He smiled. She used to say that strength without kindness is just bullying. But kindness without strength is just wishful thinking. For the first time since her rescue, Kipra began to understand something that the galactic databases had gotten completely wrong. These creatures from the Death World weren't monsters despite their incredible physical abilities and advanced weapons. They were guardians, shaped by a hostile universe into protectors of those who couldn't protect themselves. Your grandmother sounds wise, she said softly. She was, Minjay agreed. She also made the best kimchi in 3-star systems and could beat anyone at poker. Never played cards with her for money. Learned that lesson the hard way. Kipra's patches flickered with what Minjay was learning to recognize as Zephyrian. Laughter. I would have liked to meet her. She would have adopted you within 5 minutes and spent the next hour teaching you how to make proper tea, Minjay said with a grin. That's what humans do. We take care of each other. And apparently, we take care of anyone else who needs it too. As the conversation continued, word spread throughout both ships about what they were learning. The humans were discovering that they were considered the most dangerous species in known space, while the Zephyrians were slowly realizing that dangerous didn't necessarily mean evil. It was the beginning of an understanding that would change everything. Both species thought they knew about the universe and their place in it. The peaceful hum of the rescue operation was shattered by the most terrifying sound in the universe, the wailing of emergency klaxons echoing through every corridor of the human fleet. The lights on the bridge of the Indomitable shifted from calm blue to angry red as warning displays erupted across every station. Captain Haijin felt her blood turn to ice as she watched the tactical displays update in real time. Her years of training kicked in, but nothing could have prepared her for what the sensors were showing. "Ma'am, multiple contacts incoming," Lieutenant Dayun called out, her voice tight with professional control that barely masked her fear. "Energy signatures match nothing in our databases. Whatever these things are, they're big and they're moving. Fast." Commander Wujin's fingers flew over his tactical console, pulling up three-dimensional holographic displays that painted the approaching threat in stark detail. 17 vessels. Massive configuration. Each one is easily twice the size of our largest battleship. They're not responding to hails, not slowing down, and their weapons are already charging. The bridge fell silent, except for the urgent beeping of alert systems. 17 unknown warships bearing down on 3 human vessels and a crippled alien research ship. The math was simple and terrifying. Before Haijin could respond, the bridge doors burst open and Dr. Jihai rushed in her face, pale with terror. "Captain, you need to hear this right now. Captain Veltar has information about those contacts, and it's worse than we thought." The main view screen flickered to life, showing Veltar's image. The Zephyrian captain's bioluminescent patches were pulsing with panic colors so intense they hurt to look at. His tentacles writhed in patterns that the translation software identified as extreme mortal terror. Captain Hijin, Veltar's voice carried harmonics of despair that made everyone on the bridge feel cold. "Those are Void Reapers, ancient machines that consume entire star systems. They follow information trails, seeking new worlds to devour. They're death itself, given form and purpose." Haijin felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders like a lead blanket. "How much time do we have before they reach us?" "Perhaps 1 rotation. You're 18 hours, Veltar replied, his body shaking. "But Captain, you must understand something terrible. Our research data contains detailed navigational information for 17 inhabited systems, including 3 major colonies with billions of inhabitants. If the Reapers access our computers and download those star charts, millions die, Commander." Wujin finished grimly. Understanding the true scope of the disaster they faced, Haijin didn't hesitate for even a second. "Signal the fleet. All ships to battle stations immediately. All civilians to emergency shelters. Seal the blast doors and prepare for combat." She turned to her communications officer. "Get me Admiral Kim on priority channel. Now." Admiral Tyeen's weathered face appeared on the screen moments later, his experienced eyes quickly taking in the tactical situation displayed behind Haijin. "Captain, I'm seeing 17 hostile contacts and 3 of our ships. Standard protocol is immediate. Withdrawal and call for massive reinforcements." "Sir, respectfully, we can't abandon these people," Haijin said, her voice steady despite the impossible odds. "And if those machines get access to the research data containing the locations of inhabited worlds, ... I understand the situation." "Perfectly, Captain," Taijin interrupted. "But 3 ships against 17 unknowns is not a battle. It's a massacre waiting to happen. Sir, request permission to hold position pending arrival of reinforcements," Haijin said, knowing she was asking for permission to potentially die along with her entire crew. There was a long pause as the Admiral studied her face through the communication link. Finally, his weathered features broke into a grim smile. Permission granted. Additional support is already en route from 3 different battle groups. ETA. 40 minutes. 40 minutes against 17 alien war machines, Wu Jin muttered under his breath. Then we hold for 40 minutes. Hajin replied with the kind of calm determination that made her crew believe they might actually survive this. Signal all stations throughout the fleet. We're not running. We stand and fight. The transformation was incredible to watch. Throughout the 3 human warships, emergency protocols activated with mechanical precision. Blast shields slammed. Shut-over viewports, weapon systems that had been powered down for the rescue operation, roared to life. The ships themselves began to reconfigure. Armor plating shifting to expose gun batteries that had been hidden beneath sleek hulls. Aboard the gentle current, Valtar and his crew watched in amazement as the human vessels changed from rescue ships into instruments of war in a matter of minutes. Sensor arrays extended like the claws of hunting predators. Engine output increased dramatically as the ships moved into defensive positions around the crippled Zephyrian vessel. "They're not leaving," young Kipra whispered beside him, her bioluminescent patches flickering with disbelief. "No," Valtar agreed, understanding beginning to dawn in his large compound eyes. "They're staying to fight for us. For people they met less than a day ago." The first Void Reaper emerged from hyperspace like something from the galaxy's worst nightmares. It was a kilometer-long construct of black metal and crackling energy, its hull covered with weapon systems that could crack moons. Its very presence seemed to suck light from the surrounding stars, leaving a zone of darkness that hurt to look at. Then another Reaper appeared. Another. Soon 17 of the mechanical monstrosities hung in space like a plague of metal locusts, their sensors already probing toward the human fleet and the data-rich Zephyrian research vessel. "This is Captain Choi to all vessels." Hyjin's voice rang out over the communication channels, reaching every human ship and the alien vessel they were protecting. "Today we stand between innocent people and an ancient evil. We hold the line. No one dies on our watch." Yes, on the Indomitable. Sergeant Major Sung Min was leading his Marines through final equipment checks when the announcement came through. Around him, tough men and women who had seen combat across a dozen worlds stopped what they were doing and stood a little straighter. "You heard the captain," Sung Min said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a person. "Under his command, 17-3? Those are pretty good odds for us." Private Lee Yunwoo, barely 18, and on his first deployment, looked up nervously. "Sergeant Major, how is 17-3 good odds for us?" Sung Min grinned, checking the power cell on his plasma rifle. "Son, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for 200 scientists who trust us to keep them alive. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's doing impossible things when people are counting on us." In the engineering sections, Chief Engineer Park Jung-ho was pushing the ship's systems beyond their theoretical limits. "I need 15% more power to the forward shields," he called out to his team. "I don't care if you have to sacrifice the coffee makers. Get me that power." "Sir," called out Technician Kim Sora from her station. "The fusion reactors are already running at 110%. If we push them any harder, ... Then we push them at 120%, Jung-ho replied calmly. "Those machines out there want to kill everyone on this ship, and then use our friends' data to find more people to kill. That's not happening on my watch." Aboard the Zephyrian ship, Veltar felt something he'd never experienced before in his long life. As a peaceful researcher, as he watched the human warships positioning themselves between his people and certain death, hope began to bloom in his chest. These Deathworld creatures weren't just warriors or rescuers. They were heroes in the truest sense of the word. Beings willing to face impossible odds to protect others, even strangers they had no obligation to save. The Void Reapers began to advance, their weapon systems charging with energy that lit up the darkness of space. Behind the thin line of human ships, 200 Zephyrian researchers waited to see if 3 vessels, crewed by barely 1,000, Humax could hold back an ancient evil that had consumed countless worlds. The battle for the future of 17 star systems was about to begin. And everything depended on whether the children of Earth could prove that sometimes. Heroes really do win against impossible odds. The first Void Reaper fired, and space itself seemed to scream, beam of pure energy, bright enough to blind unprotected. Eyes sliced through the void where the thunderstrike had been just a heartbeat before. Captain Lim Sua felt the heat wash over her ship's hull as she threw her destroyer into a spinning dive that would have liquefied any normal crew. Return. Fire. Target their primary weapon array. She shouted over the roar of overstressed engines. Her gunners didn't hesitate. Plasma cannons erupted in brilliant blue streams that hammered into the Reaper's black hull like hammers of light. The battle was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen, where the Void Reapers fought with the crushing weight of overwhelming firepower. The humans danced between their attacks with impossible grace. The three human ships moved like wolves hunting a buffalo herd, each vessel covering the others in a deadly ballet of warfare. The Defiant swooped between two massive Reapers, her captain threading the needle between energy beams that could have vaporized a moon. At the same time, the Indomitable provided covering fire, her weapons reaching out across millions of kilometers to strike with surgical precision. It was coordination born from years of training and the desperate knowledge that failure meant death for everyone they were protecting. Aboard the flagship Indomitable, the ship shuddered under impact after impact as Reaper weapons found their mark. Lights flickered, conduits sparked, and the artificial gravity hiccuped as systems strained beyond their limits. Through the chaos, Sergeant Major Sung Min led his damage control team like a man possessed. Hull breach on Deck 7. Corporal Yang and Sue's voice crackled through the CUM system over the sound of emergency klaxons. In the forward compartment, the blast doors are jammed and the section is venting atmosphere. Sung Min didn't even pause. With me, he ordered, grabbing an emergency kit that looked more like a portable arsenal. His team followed him through corridors filled with smoke and the acrid smell of burning electronics. Their boots splashing through pools of coolant leaking from damaged systems, they found the disaster zone quickly enough. A direct hit from a Reaper weapon had twisted the ship's hull like a pretzel, creating a maze of jagged metal and sparking cables. Through a gap in the wreckage, they could see Kipra and three other Zephyrians huddled together in what had once been a comfortable observation lounge. It was a death trap, losing atmosphere so fast that frost was forming on the aliens' translucent skin. Can't reach them through the main access, Yang reported, his scanner painting the wreckage in 3 dimensions. Too much debris, and the structural supports are ready to collapse. One wrong move, and we'll bring the whole section down on them. Sungmin studied the wreckage with the calculating eye of a man who had spent 20 years getting people out of impossible situations. Then he began stripping off his powered armor, piece by piece, until he wore only the basic life support undersuit. "Sir, what are you doing?" Yang asked, though he already knew the answer. "Emergency Protocol 7, Sungmin replied calmly, sealing his helmet and checking his suit's oxygen supply. "No. 30-meter crawl through unstable wreckage to reach trapped civilians."
Sir, that's insane."
"You'll be crawling through burning debris. With no armor protection, it's one spark in the wrong place and you're dead. One piece of metal shifts wrong and you're crushed." Sungmin looked at his subordinate with the kind of smile that had made him a legend in the Marines. "Those people are counting on us, Yang. They trusted us to keep them safe, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let them down now." He dropped to his hands and knees at the entrance to the twisted metal maze. "Monitor my vitals. If I don't make it back in 15 minutes, find another way to get them out." What followed was the longest 15 minutes of Yang's life. He watched Sungmin's life signs on his scanner as the sergeant major crawled through gaps barely wide enough for a human body, past electrical fires that would have killed an unprotected person, through spaces where twisted metals scraped and tore at his emergency suit. "Status report," Yang called out every few minutes. "Still breathing," came Sungmin's voice, tight with exertion. "Halfway there. Tell me something good about the battle." The Thunderstrike just took out 2 Reapers with a kamikaze run. Captain Sua rammed her ship right into their weapon array while her crew evacuated in escape pods. "That's our girl," Sungmin grunted, squeezing through a gap that scraped skin from his shoulders. "Always did like the direct approach." When he finally reached the trapped Zephyrians, Kipper stared at him with her large compound eyes wide with amazement. Her bioluminescent patches were dim with oxygen deprivation, but they flickered brighter when she saw him. "You came for us," she whispered, her voice barely audible through the thin atmosphere. "Always," Sugman replied, already working with his cutting tools to slice through the final barrier. "That's what we do. We don't leave people behind." The battle outside raged for 37 minutes that felt like 37 hours. Human tactics that seemed completely insane by galactic standards proved devastatingly effective against enemies who fought by the book. When conventional weapons failed, humans turned everything into weapons. Mining equipment became makeshift cannons. Escape pods became guided missiles. Even pieces of debris were turned into kinetic projectiles hurled at Reaper ships with deadly accuracy. The Reapers had overwhelming firepower. But humans had something the ancient machines couldn't understand or counter: the ability to think creatively under pressure, to adapt faster than their enemies could react, and to turn their own desperation into a weapon. When the last Void Reaper finally fell, its broken hull spinning away into the system's star like a funeral pyre, the human fleet had taken incredible damage but achieved the impossible. Not a single person had died, human or Zephyrian. Admiral Tejian arrived with his reinforcements just as the wreckage of the last enemy ship disappeared into solar fire. His weathered face showed relief and pride in equal measure as he received the casualty reports. 17 wounded, no fatalities, Commander Wu Jin reported, still barely believing it himself. All Zephyrian civilians safe and accounted for. And their research data? Secured and encrypted. The Reapers never got within 1,000,000 kilometers of it. Later, in the diplomatic suite that had somehow survived the battle intact, Captain Veltar worked on his report to the Galactic Council while Dr. Jihai sat across from him, reviewing the cultural exchange data that would change everything both species thought they knew about the universe. "I must ask you something," Veltar said carefully, his tentacles moving in patterns of deep thought. "Your admiral gave you the option to withdraw to safety. Why did you stay? Why risk everything for strangers you had never met?" Jihai considered the question seriously. "Because someone needed help. That's what we do. It's who we are. Even when staying meant you might all die. Especially then." She replied with a smile that would have looked predatory to most aliens, but somehow seemed warm and protective to Veltar. "My people have an old saying, society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. We protect others not because we expect rewards or thanks, but because protection is what separates civilization from chaos." Veltar's final report to the Galactic Council would become one of the most important documents in galactic history. Recommendation: immediate revision of Death World classification protocols required. Species designation: Homo sapiens, Terra. Previous classification: hostile apex predators. Recommended classification: guardian protectors. He paused in his writing, then added a personal note that would be quoted for generations. Some monsters, it seems, are exactly who you want answering your distress call. The humans of Terra are not monsters, despite being from a death world. They are heroes because of it. Their harsh world did not create cruel killers. It forged beings willing to endure any hardship to protect others. The end.